Just when you thought we were done with the 25 most iconic wrestling cards of all time, we finished with the top 5, which was the main event. And now it's time for the jabroni to show up on the camera and open up the dark match.
That was stupid. It ain't gonna draw a dime.
In today's video, I've got 4 takeaways that I want to talk about as it pertains to the cards on the 25 most iconic wrestling cards of all time. We finished up the list. It's done. It's over. But then I started looking at some things and I'm like, there's a lot of interesting talking points in here. And hey, let's make one more video kind of talking about those things. Could these takeaways be important? Could they actually provide more solid information to the collectors, to the investors, to the dealers, to pretty much anybody involved with wrestling cards? And that information being what collectors like, what collectors want, and what they prefer in their wrestling cards. Could this one video actually be more valuable information-wise than all of those other videos we did cover in the 25? Or again, will this just be a jobber, that's me, on the screen in the video dark match portion of this video series? I don't know. You'll have to stick around and watch. What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Cards. So today I wanted to do just kind of a wrap-up video of this 25 most iconic wrestling cards of all time. As we've been going through these cards and this list in this video series over the past few months, and I say we because we couldn't have done this video, this series, without you, the viewers, the wrestling card collectors, the listeners, everybody that took part in this, sending your votes in to me, tallying those up, being a part of this great project that we did. But as we went through this list, there were some things that were popping up, some surprises, some interesting information I didn't expect. And, you know, I tallied all the votes to see what was number 25 all the way up to number 21 and what even made that honorable mention list. But I wanted to dig deeper into the statistics of some of the stuff that I've seen here, and I hope that it can help you, the collectors. So let's go. So who's the top dog? Who's the head of the table? Who's the main event? Who is the biggest draw in wrestling cards? Well, as we know, the 1982 Wrestling All-Stars Hulk Hogan card was voted the most iconic wrestling card of all time, according to you. But let's look at another meaningful statistic, and that is which wrestler, despite maybe not being number 1, actually made the most appearances for separate cards on this list. We actually had a 3-way tie. Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Each one of those talents had 3 separate cards appear on this list. And it's interesting when you look at those names and then you kind of look at the sales that are presented to us on a regular basis. I feel like we're just not seeing a lot of Macho Man cards and a lot of Stone Cold Steve Austin cards being talked about in that upper echelon of hobby love and hobby sales, grabbing those big numbers, grabbing that mainstream attention, as opposed to like a Rock or an Andre, which we saw on this list also. And we see their cards talked about all the time and always hitting those big sales. But if the 3 guys we're talking about had more appearances on this list than anybody else, the popularity overall of the name and the talent kind of speaks for itself. And maybe as time goes on, as we get more people involved in this great segment of the hobby that we know as wrestling cards, those rare and iconic cards of the Macho Man and of Stone Cold Steve Austin, maybe as more collectors start looking at wrestling cards, we start seeing the names and the rarity of these guys we're talking about kind of start, you know, going up in value and popularity. And I said, you know, the Stone Cold Steve Austins and the Macho Mans, and you can maybe throw a few others in there, even though they aren't meeting this statistic we're talking about today. I've said that, you know, they aren't grabbing the attention of the hobby mainstream. They're not grabbing the hobby headlines, grabbing that money, those big sales you see on Golden. But if you look back to the 80s, at the end, in the golden boom of the 80s, Macho Man was doing that with wrestling fans. And then jump forward to the Attitude Era, Stone Cold Steve Austin was doing that with wrestling fans. So I think one day it'll just kind of mesh and we'll start seeing these guys talked about a lot more. It will be interesting, though, to kind of do a case study on these 3 talents and see kind of who starts going above another one as we go forward and grow this wrestling card community. And now let's talk about everyone's favorite topic in the wrestling card space. Okay, well, maybe not everyone, but definitely mine. Rookie cards!
Inconceivable!
And this list definitely provided something that we need to talk about. And I've presented this question before, and that is, do rookie cards still matter? For the longest time in the hobby, no matter what segment it is, Marvel, Pokemon, sports, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, tennis, you name it, whatever it is, the rookie card, the first card, has always been the go-to for anybody wanting to start collecting somebody, or anybody looking to make an investment or wanting the iconic card that everybody knows about. But as we have expanded more into the ultra-modern space of all types of cards, the world of manufactured rarity and scarcity has really kind of changed things within the hobby. But it doesn't matter what I think.
It doesn't matter how you feel.
Let's look at the grand scheme and the overall numbers that came away from this list. Out of the 25 most iconic wrestling cards of all time that made this list, 17 of those cards, wow, a whopping 17 of those cards would be either official rookie cards or considered by many to be rookie cards, while only 7 of these cards were non-rookie cards. Now again, some of these rookie cards can be debated by many. Are they official? Are they not? And some of those rookie cards did come with additional features such as serial numbers or autographs. But the facts are the facts. In a landslide, people still care about rookie cards. Rookie cards still remain extremely popular in the hobby, even if it's not that Prism Black, that one-of-one Topps Chrome Superfractor. It's not the most popular thing, but collectors still love it. So then I guess maybe it is popular. Uh-oh. I mentioned Prism. You know what that means? I know. I've said this like 3 times now. I'm like Kiss. I say I'm going to go on my farewell tour and I just never get away from it. In fact, I said on my wrestling card market watch for May of 2023, go check that out in the archives, I mentioned, hey, this is probably going to be the final time I ever talk about this subject. But with this list and the results that we've seen from these numbers, I got to talk about it one more time. Modern versus vintage. Now wait, don't turn it off yet. We got really interesting statistics with this. So for vintage, I know what people consider vintage is a little bit of a moving target from a time frame standpoint. For the sake of the discussion that we're going to talk about today, I'm going to use a rule of anything from 20 years ago and back. So based on that criteria, out of the 25 most iconic wrestling cards of all time, 21 of these cards are considered vintage for the sake of today's discussion, with only 4 of those cards being considered modern. Not to mention card number 16 all the way through card number 1, all considered vintage. And notice that again, this is cards based on being iconic, not for what sells the most or what is the most valuable, although I'm sure there's a little bit of crossover between that. But it's really interesting results nonetheless. And again, as wrestling cards grow and progress, as we get newer cards, as at one day Prism is going to be considered vintage, and then we're going to have the super ancient vintage stuff from the 80s. As we get more people collecting and tastes change, maybe people want to go back and buy the old stuff. Maybe people don't want to care anything about that and just want new products. As all of these things change and evolve, this will be something interesting to kind of keep an eye on. And now let's look at some characteristics of cards and compare them. What do people actually want? Do they like autographs? Do they like base cards? Do they like parallels? We hear a lot of Twitter experts and a lot of people making content saying, well, this is what you should buy. This is going after the low number parallels. Go for the autographs. They always keep their value. The base cards is where it's at. Everybody's got an opinion. So let's just see what the numbers presented from you, the viewers who voted on this list. Out of the 25 most iconic wrestling cards of all time on this list, 2 of those cards were autograph only, 3 of those cards were either serial numbered only or a parallel, and 4 of those cards were a combination of the autograph number and parallel. That leaves a whopping 16 cards that are just base cards. And again, some of the base cards on this list, maybe there weren't many produced. Maybe they're locked away in collections. You just don't see some of these things. Maybe the conditions vary. Maybe the grades vary. But again, based on this results, I'm kind of surprised in an overwhelming landslide, base cards still matter. And if you need an ending argument for that, look at the top 5, which is the last video we did. Again, go check that in the archives. All 5 cards, all base cards. Surprisingly, no autographs, nothing shiny, no one-of-ones. They're just cards, and people love them. And with that, the 25 most iconic wrestling cards of all time video series now has a bookend. This jobber is going to be looking at the lights and getting off the screen because we're not going to talk about this anymore. But I want to once again thank every single person that participated in this. These are the kind of fun things we do when we get audience engagement and community participation. And I'd like to do a lot more things like that. But again, for that to happen, we need a lot of community participation. So what can you do? Well, support this channel and any other content creators out there around wrestling cards. If you like this video, if this video series brought you some value, hit that subscribe button, give me a like. The biggest thing you can do is tell a friend, send somebody over to this channel, tell them about my podcast, tell them about the Wrestling Card Discord channel. And if you want more information on all other kinds of ways that you can help build the community, spread the word, interact, leave a comment below, make some friends in the chat of this video. What do you think about what I've talked about today? There's some very interesting statistics. What do they mean? Do you agree or do you disagree? I'd love to hear your opinion. Again, leave a comment below. And hey, you can reach out to me on social media. Again, sharing, talking about things. Even if it's just a DM and you don't want to put something out in public, that's fine. Happy to have a discussion. And you can find all the other ways you can help show your support in the links in the show notes. After you're done leaving a comment, check out those links. Lots of stuff in there. But I thank you guys for watching. I thank you for being a part of this video series that we've now put the bookend on. But until next time, Click the videos on the screen for all the other great wrestling card content in the archives of this channel. See you next time.